reason that I'm here is because the club is seeking change.
He said, well, whether you come or not, you're going to see a completely different Spurs team under me.
My hope and my desire and what I'm going to try and do is give our supporters hope and belief that we're going to embark on something special.
Welcome into the Tottenham Depot. I am your host, Andrew. You can follow me at Astetka. You can follow us at Tottenham Depot. This is episode 193, and we have got an exciting and comprehensive victory for Tottenham Hotspur to speak about. A 4-0 win over Everton in the home opener of the season. We've got Caroline alongside to talk about it. She is at CG Stefco. Caroline, what's going on with you on this fine Sunday?
I'm hanging in there. It's been a really busy weekend for me moving, but I was happy to take the time out to watch a very delightful Tottenham Hotspur victory. And yeah, ready to pod about it. I've been, waiting for this.
Yeah, it was certainly a big one. Todd is also along with us at TC_Kasho. Todd, what is up, my man?
Hi, any day, brother. Any day you can talk about 3 points in a convincing fashion is a good fucking day. We stepped on their necks, which is exactly what I was asking for in the last pod. So I couldn't be more excited to chat about it.
We are going to chat about that. We've also got a week left to go in the transfer window. We will chat a little bit about what still needs to be done, what has happened over the last week. And a little bit of Spurs Women news on the back end, too. We are going to let Caroline cook on something that she's been cooking on social media, which I'm really excited to do. Before we do any of that, I took a little bit of time over the last 24 hours or so since the game to listen to Ange and hear what he had to say. And before we dive in, let's hear what Ange had to say on this performance.
Yeah, no, the performance was excellent. I said after the game, I thought the performance last week was excellent too, but you've got to also turn that sort of dominance in performance into outcomes of results, and we did today. We looked really threatening going forward all the time. Created many chances, different kinds of chances, and I thought we handled their threat, which they still are from set pieces and long balls really well today. So there was a real discipline in both aspects of the game.
I mean, as you said, Todd, this was comprehensive. It was thrilling at times. I thought there was really only probably the 5 to 10 minutes before halftime that Spurs even looked vulnerable. Do we want to start off looking at this lineup? Because there were 3 changes from the Leicester match. Obviously, a few of them forced changes because of injury. We had Bentancur was obviously going to be a miss after the head injury. And then we found out midweek that Solanke was going to be out due to an ankle issue he picked up. And then obviously Kulusevski also came into the lineup for Pat Matasar. Any glaring surprises for you from the lineup, Todd? I mean, I think there's one that we should probably talk about, which was a little bit surprising for everyone.
We'll come on to that.
Yeah, we'll certainly come on to that. But anything like uber shocking to you?
Shocking, no. I wouldn't say uber shocking. It's you can never judge, how deep in a doghouse a player is with a given manager. So I guess the surprise for me would be that Basuma started. I expected Archie Gray to get the start. To be fair, and we'll come on to what Basuma actually did on the pitch. To be fair, I feel like that showed a vote of confidence from Ange, which I think got an inspired performance out of the player. So we'll come on to talk about that later. But other than that, thank God that they put my guy Decky back in the fucking starting lineup because they were crying out for it last time. And what did he do? Just did Decky things all up and down the pitch and was epic, just like he had been all preseason. And just found a way to use Decky in such an efficient and effective way. I don't know that we'll see him out of the lineup very often in the future.
I want to come on to talk a little bit more about Decky as well. Caroline, what about for you? What stood out about this lineup, the changes that were made? Anything glaring, anything that you would have done differently? I know that for me, there is, I think, one player I kind of want to pick on that hasn't put it in the first 2 games, but that's something that I'm kind of holding in my holster as well. But what about for you? Anything from the lineup stand out?
Well, I agree with Todd that I was pretty surprised to see Basuma start just based on, sort of the squad update that Ange had given earlier in the week where he said, he's available for selection, but we have other options. I thought that was really pointed. So I was pretty shocked to see that he got the start. But to be fair to him, I do think, as Ange said after the game, he was very disciplined in this match and probably one of the better performances we've seen from him. But I also have to agree with Ange in the sense that I question if he can keep that consistency. That's always kind of been the issue with him for me. So we'll see how that goes. But I thought also Decky coming into the lineup was very much needed, especially against a team like this where we needed someone like that who can kind of, draw those defenders in the box, which he did really well for the goal that he assisted. Just gave Basuma the perfect space to fire off that shot. I thought that was brilliant. And, it's unfortunate that Solanke already got a knock, but I think people are maybe going in a little early on the panic about, injury FC. Like, he got kicked. It happens. Hopefully it's not going to be something that keeps him out more than one game. And I would like to see him back soon.
What I would say is that, again, the addition by subtraction train rolls along, and there will likely be a speedy recovery by Solanke for one reason that will go unnamed because I don't want a defamation lawsuit. But I would like to reiterate, fuck that guy.
I knew exactly where this was going, and I'm totally fine with it, and I'm glad you stopped where you did for those purposes. Where do we want to start, guys? I do kind of want to start on Basuma because Ange obviously spoke about Basuma after the match as well. Before we kind of get into it, let's hear what Ange had to say because Caroline, your point about I put it in our group chat on Friday night. I said, based on what Ange has said prior to this game, I would be shocked if it's not Archie Gray. And when it was Basuma, I was surprised. If we're doing takeaways from the starting 11, that was also mine. I was shocked by it. But here's what Ange had to say about Basuma post match.
Yeah, no, Biss was good, and we know Biss is a good footballer. It's about him sort of being the best version of himself, and he'll only get there if. As we've spoken a few times, discipline's a big thing for him. I thought it was a disciplined performance from him today. Not just the goal he scored, but he had a really important job for us. We knew they'd sort of play fairly direct, and he had to be there to mop up second balls and intercept things. And he was clean for the most part in possession. So good performance.
I am kind of on board with the way that Ange has handled it. I think he's been handed a really difficult situation because of what the player has done and the player's on-field and off-field discretions. Let's just put it that way. The fact that he was able to come in and give a performance like he did, and it's not down to the goal, like Ange said. I felt like everywhere else that he was on the pitch yesterday was kind of immaculate. I thought he was as good as both Decky and Madison were in the midfield. I thought Basuma was the best player in the midfield and really was like running things from that number 6 role. He was cleaning stuff up. He was ensuring that other players could get forward. If you're going to play a formation with those 5 attacking players in Odegaard, Son, Johnson, Madison, Decky ahead of you, you need, and not to mention fullbacks that really get forward as well. You really need a number 6 to protect your center backs. And I thought Basuma did an outstanding job of that in this match.
I don't disagree with that at all. He was a bit wasteful with intolerance, wasteful in possession, especially in the first half. I think they got it sorted out at halftime. But I think he did an exceptional job, as you mentioned, transitioning from defense to offense, which is what a 6 does in the Ange system, and cleaning up those second balls. I think he did a tremendous job of cleaning up the second balls. And that is pretty much what you're seeing across the board from players that play well in Ange systems, is the ability to dig out those second balls and quickly turn them into offensive possessions. And I think that if Basuma can play, this is the Basuma we bought from Brighton, right? This is who we bought. And this is what we were expecting, is this type of play from Basuma, where he's one of the best players on the pitch at his position, and every now and then he knocks in a fucking thunderbolt, right? That's who he is. So we got the thunderbolt. and we got the full Yves Bissouma treatment. This is, I would imagine, his ceiling for us. Now, if he can play at 85 to 90% of this consistently for the rest of the season, let's go.
But the ifs are obviously the question, right, Caroline? Like, that's kind of what we've been constantly harping on, is if this can last, if this can hold up, if he can keep his nose clean, right?
Right. And, in this game, I thought he looked perfectly locked in, whereas I have sometimes been frustrated with him in the past because games will just pass him by. And we talk about this all the time on the pod, but the 6 is a position where we can't afford to have a passenger in this lineup because it's so integral to allowing, everybody else on the pitch to do their thing and to keep that kind of fluid interchange that Ange really, prioritizes. So today, not today, in the Everton game, it worked perfectly because Bissouma was doing his job. I do think it's just a matter of, can we get this out of him consistently? And I think Ange has kind of alluded to the fact that it's not just like his on the pitch inconsistency, but off as well. Like it sounds like there have been some issues with like lack of discipline in training and like his, just showing up at the right times. And that's
too many Travis Scott concerts.
Yeah, it's just something he's going to have to work on his own. I'm trying to, I guess, get on board with him as much as I can. Like I've been, very honest in the past about, the fact that I didn't like the way the club brought him in. So it's been very hard for me to ever get excited about this player.
Sure.
But I do believe, as Ange says, like for some situations, players do deserve second chances. And this is definitely one where it's not the end of the world, I don't think. But yeah.
I think what I'm trying to do with Bissouma is not that part of it that you just mentioned, the way the club brought him in. I'm trying to not hold that completely against him personally, while also leaving room for me to be critical of all of his transgressions. And like you said, they're not all on the pitch, they're off the pitch. There were some interesting quotes from football.london in a piece this morning, I believe written by Alistair Gold. Quotes from Ange that I had not heard or seen until this morning, Sunday, the 25th, when reading this. And he said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, you know what it's like when you punish your child and they do everything right for the next 2 days. He's first in the meetings, he's doing everything right, but there's always temptation down the road. So we'll see. I've always believed in opportunity for redemption and learning. We're still in that space at the moment with Bissouma. Obviously, that door closes after a while if there's repeated indiscretions. He's been good, but I would have been surprised if he wasn't. It's always the key with Biss is consistency, the consistency of behavior, what he does. It's not that he's doing a lot of bad things. Obviously, last transgression was very serious, but it's the little things along the way also. I think sometimes that manifests in his game where he's really good and he'll have a moment where he's not. I think it all correlates. So I think that, to my point earlier, Ange is handling this about as best as he can with a player that has given him a difficult moment to kind of guide him through. I think, however, with that said, I'm almost to the place where at the peak of their powers, I would prefer a peak Bissouma over a peak Bentancur at the
100%.
And that's
100%.
not to say that I don't think Bentancur could be a really good option and even an option in the 8 at times, because I think Bentancur shows a little bit more in the pressing game than Bissouma does. But in that true number 6 role where you're sitting and recycling, and like you said, Todd, with those second balls, what we saw from Bissouma in this Everton match for me was like you said, that's the peak of his powers. And if we can get 80% of that on a consistent basis, I'm pretty satisfied. So I think that's, and the goal was obviously his first goal for the club. It was a banger. It was completely made possible by the work by guys like Johnson and Kulusevski in the build-up. The play in that first half, just in general,
spicy.
It was so spicy. It was so brilliant. They had the ball. They were pushing for it. They provided so much going forward, and I really obviously loved the way that they played for building up into that first goal. I do want to talk about the other goals as well. Let's talk about, like, for example, that second goal, the Suns'
what
first.
Happened?
What happened? That was made. I wrote this down. I did that bit where I did not watch the game live, but I came home and I took extensive notes on a yellow legal pad. Sonny set that goal up by pressuring Pickford throughout those first 30 minutes or so. Like, that was not a one-time blunder. That was Pickford feeling pressure building up to that moment, and he crumbled in that moment. And I just thought that was really brilliant. I wanted to make that point because that was not simply, oh, Pickford fucked this up. It was that, but it wasn't just that, is kind of the point I want to make. It was Son pressuring him constantly throughout and building up to that moment where Pickford really just peed down his leg. And I thought that was kind of funny to watch.
So I 100% agree and want to make this comparison for those who've been listening to the Tottenham Depot for a long time. You will remember how I used to make reference to Harry Kane allowing Kasper Schmeichel out of his GIMP cage
Yes.
twice a year to play against him. In those matches, Kane would repeatedly beat him about the head and shoulders mercilessly with goals and
With goals,
general,
yes. It's important that we say that with goals.
And general insults to his character and manhood. That is the character that Jordan Pickford plays in the Heung-min Son story. If you think back on the matches against Everton and the goals that Sonny has scored, he sons Pickford on a regular basis, and it is hilarious. No pun intended.
Yeah, for me, this goal was all about experience. So Son having extensive experience playing against Pickford, that was a huge asset in this match because he knew exactly the way to pressure him, like you said. But also experience in the sense of this is Sonny setting an example for the other forwards on the team of what the expectation is. So yeah, to me, it's easy to say that this was kind of like a fluky, lucky goal, but I don't think it really is. Like, I think it was, something that he manifested. So it deserves credit for sure.
In our rundown, I labeled both of Son's goals as gift goals, and we'll certainly come on to talk about the other goal that he scored. But they were both in some ways given to him, which is totally fine. He had to finish them. He had to make the effort. He had to do all the work for it to put himself in that position. But it was kind of beautiful too. The other point is that he scored them both from different positions, which I think is another great point.
And we'll come on to the second goal, but I'm going to push back on that because that finish on that second goal was fucking filthy.
Oh, it was incredible. It was an incredible finish. You're exactly right.
Also,
the
timing of the giving was very important.
Well, let's just talk about it. Let's just talk about that goal now. Let's get into it now, because Mickey van de Ven obviously sets that entire. Mickey van de Ven made a Son versus Burnley-esque run to set this goal up, but Sonny had to be there with him to finish it. I was not convinced that van de Ven was gonna either get it fully right or certainly take on the goal himself. He had Son there in support. He knew that, and he knew that Sonny is a badass finisher and allowed Sonny to do his Sonny thing, which I thought was brilliant.
That pass from Van de Ven was as smooth as that man's jawline, like ridiculous business. Okay. Like, anyhow, the finish from Son goes back to Caroline's point about playing against Pickford on a regular basis and knowing all he has to do is one touch to the left foot and he's going to be able to nutmeg him and finish. And that's exactly what he did. It didn't touch Pickford until it got through his legs and his back foot and then ricocheted into the goal. And Pickford knew it as soon, like he didn't even wait for the listen. He slid, it went through him. He rolled over and stayed face down in the grass because there's nothing to do in that moment but just bury your head in shame. And I cannot speak about the wheels of Mickey van de Ven. And I don't think what I said in the moment about that goal is that highlight will be in Mickey van de Ven's Tottenham package for the rest of his life.
No question. Just like the Son goal against Burnley. Like
100%.
It's the same kind of deal.
Caroline,
what other words other than fast as fuck can you describe Van de Ven as? Like he's so fast.
I would say surprisingly complete. We're starting to see other aspects of his game that we've been wanting to see besides just the pace, which is not a dispute for sure. So I think it's great that he's starting to feel more confident about getting involved in the attack, and it's obviously helped that he had such an efficient finisher alongside him to finish off that chance. But yeah, I just like that he had the confidence and the impetus to do it. And he's had a great start to the season, considering he like barely had a preseason. So that's really reassuring. And he avoided what seemed to be an injury issue.
Oh my God.
Which was very scary.
Let's chat about that for a moment, because I actually, as I said, I wrote down notes, and I literally wrote down when it happened, is this changing our plans in the rest of the transfer window, which we'll come on to talk about a little bit later, in terms of a center back acquisition, because this looked bad. A hyperextension, it looked like, of the knee, which on the broadcast they were talking about, yeah, that could affect a number of things. It could affect everything up to your hip and back. I mean, it looked ugly. And the fact that Radu Dragusin immediately sprinted off the bench, started to warm up, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, they got to half. I'm sure they're going to reevaluate and bring Dragusin on for the second half. Well, when that didn't happen, I was like, what's going on here? The fact that he was able to make that run late in the match after having suffered that what looked like devastating injury, my mind was blown by that.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to call it miraculous Dutch ligaments. I don't know how his knee didn't snap in half right there. But I'm watching them go through the ligament test. I'm watching his face as they're going through the ligament test, which is wild that they got a camera angle on that. Good for them. In the NFL, that doesn't happen. I'm watching him go through the ligament test, and he's fine. And I see him get up. And I'm like, okay, that's just a nasty hyperextension. And I, like you, thought he was going to come out at halftime if he was going to be able to make it there. But my head immediately went to the transfer window, Andrew, because it's like, who is our backup? I mean, Dragusin, but he's right-footed, and he doesn't have the passing range or the speed to be Mickey Van de Ven in that system. We don't have a like for like in Van de Ven.
And we don't, and I don't know. Here's the thing. I don't think you can find a like for Van de Ven, because there's no one like him with his speed. You would have to adapt the way that you played if he was out for a time. And let's I mean, gosh, I don't even.
Which we did last season. And
we did last season. We had
right. No,
I'm getting. I just want you guys. I want the listeners to know, and the viewers on the YouTube page can probably see it. I'm looking at my arm because I'm getting the heebie-jeebies even talking about this. Like, I don't want to think about this, but yes, you would like Dragusin is the quote unquote backup for either Romero or Van de Ven in the center back. I think I don't want him on the left, but I think he would have to play there because he's the guy. Ben Davis is obviously still here and still around, but he completely changes the way you have to play to some extent as well because of his physical limitations. Ange was asked earlier in the week, I believe in the pre-match press conference, about whether or not this team will look to add another center back for depth before the window closes. And he kind of brushed it off and said, no, I think we're set there between Dragusin, Davis, and a name he also mentioned in this that has the ability to play center back was Archie Gray. Now, Archie Gray is kind of bound, like Archie Gray has been talked about as a 6, which I think will be his long-term solution play. He's been talked about as a right back, and he's been talked about as a center back. I would like to see that versatility is great, but I would also like to see, as a young player, him develop one perfect spot. But maybe there's not a perfect spot, and maybe he is that cover.
We don't want him to end up with Eric Dyer syndrome. I totally see you, and like it's, yes. I just we're in the exact same page. Okay, took Eric Dyer literally 8 years to figure out what fucking position he played. So, and he still wasn't particularly good at it. Anyway, at least for us. Fuck do I know? But what I would say is that it absolutely needs cover. Now there is the gentleman that just went out on loan. Help me with the last name, Ashley
Phillips.
Thank you, Ashley Phillips. They see the club sees as a long-term asset, and so, but I still don't know that that's going to meet our immediate need for left-sided center back cover, because even with Archie Gray, like that doesn't meet the need. It's not there. So
I don't know. I think the club feels confident with Dragusin, Davis, and Gray as the 3 guys that would be in order to fill in for either of the center backs at this point. But I don't disagree with what you're saying, especially in terms of left-sided help.
Yeah, and then the other thing that I want to push back on is you say, well, there's not a like for like replacement for him. To be fair, fucking 3 years ago, we didn't know that Mickey Van de Ven fucking existed because I didn't watch a lot of Wolfsburg football. Maybe Caroline did, but I'm just saying, like there's a chance that there's dudes out there that fit this profile, fast as fuck, tall, lanky center backs, like isn't necessarily the best defending his own box, but can definitely track back and get the last ball. Like I don't know, man. Maybe there are more guys that are there.
I think you're talking about trying to find unicorns, though. Like that's the and
I'm not
convincing
saying that
them
they have to look like fucking
Yeah.
Armani models like this guy does.
No,
I'm just saying track back.
But I think what you're also asking for there is them to find a guy who's willing to come here and mostly sit on the bench and take a role. Like you're talking about a young player who maybe hasn't shown those attributes yet. And this is where it becomes really difficult in terms of scouting and
well,
all
even
that kind of stuff.
Jurgushyn, when he came, there was a bit of a somewhat bidding war with Bayern, and he kind of had to make the decision. And we all kind of know that his agent thinks he made the wrong one, but he's here now. So,
and Caroline, as our foremost Bayern expert, but as our former Bayern expert, would Radu Dragusin be starting every week at center back for Bayern right now? Like, I don't know that he would he?
I can't say yes, but only because nothing they're doing is predictable right now.
Okay, fair enough.
They let De Ligt go, and that was the stupidest decision, but I can't get into it now.
That's all fair. I want to go back to Sonny for a second, just partially because Ange gave a really good Sonny answer after the match, which I want to play, but also let's just get to that, because he was asked about Sonny trying to cement his status as a club legend. And I thought that Ange gave a really interesting answer on that. And obviously after 2 goals, you're going to talk about Sonny a little bit more. So let's do that right now.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's no sort of set criteria for that stuff. It's I've got no doubt that whenever he's done and dusted, and it's hopefully a long way down the track, he will be an esteemed company at this football club. But I love the fact that he's still motivated to do more. That's the key thing for us. And he was really good today. There's the reason I put him in the middle, because we know Jordan is a big part of their sort of build-up play, and they use him a lot. And Sonny's the best presser we have in that front third. He's unbelievable, and I think he relished that role. And again, showed his threat when he went out wide on the left with a great finish.
I want to double click on what Ange said there at the end about playing Sonny in different positions, and I think that there's a lot that goes into this attack in terms of the versatility of the members of it. One of them is Sonny. One of them is Richarlison. The other one would be Decky. These are all guys, and Madison to an extent as well, I think. These are all guys that are showing capabilities of doing different things. And I just think that's so important when you're coming into a season where you're going to need different things against different opponents. And against an opponent like Everton, that bit of coaching that Ange did in terms of knowing Sonny would be able to press if he's up top, press Pickford. We saw it come through with 2 goals for him, one of them directly off of just pressing the hell out of Pickford. And then his ability to go out wide later in the match and score the goal that Van de Ven fed him that we already talked about. It just gives this team so much capability. And I think that the fact that Solanke was out today, everyone was thinking, okay, well, Richarlison will probably, you would think, maybe play up top with Sonny out wide. No, he does something different. He plays Sonny through the middle, which I don't think we're expecting to see a lot of in this season, because we have Richarlison and Solanke to be able to do that. But the fact that Ange thought, no, let's mix this up and do it this way. I don't know. There was a little bit of brilliance, I thought, from Ange, and obviously Sonny's versatility in being able to do more than one thing is super, super valuable to this club, in my opinion.
I 100% agree. I mean, Ange made the point of saying that he's the special one, as we mentioned, out of the front group there. His ability to do different things is the reason why he's on the pitch, because if you look at just a straight winger position under Ange, like Odegaard is a much more natural wing than Son is, and because he can beat the man and get to the byline, and that's kind of what Ange is looking for. Son, on the other hand, has the ability to be dangerous from so many different positions and possibly impact the pitch in so many different ways from so many different perspectives That is the universal effectiveness that you're going to need out of an Ange forward player, right? As we talked about with the midfield, there's certain attributes that he needs. It's kind of why, you know, a lot of those front positions are a little bit of hybrid between an 8 and a 10, right? Same thing with there's not like a true, there's more like a forward position under Ange. Look at Decky, for Christ's sake. I mean, he played on the right wing for a lot of that. He played in the midfield. He played a false nine. He did all the Decky things, right? And that's just speaks to Ange's ability to recognize the players that can do the things that he values and that leads us to be successful.
Yeah, my only comment to add is that I just want to know who this reporter was that asked if he had achieved club legend status, because duh.
Yeah.
Well,
Where
I mean, yeah. Well,
I don't think it's
he
in
did get
dispute.
top 20. Top 20 today, Premier League goal scorers of all time.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of, I mean, if that's not club legend, what are we talking about?
Well, and to me, it's also the personality factor as well. Like
Yeah, it's the off the field stuff.
The commitment, the loyalty, it all comes together. And I think, you know, in that clip, Ange was talking about him still having a lot of motivation. We saw that with him deciding not to take the highly lucrative move to Saudi Arabia. Like he is devoted to the club. So
no, and I don't think it's a great shout, Caroline. And I don't think we recognize exactly. I don't know that we could how big of a star he is on the other side of the world. And like with that in mind, and the fact that he pinned his iconic status to Tottenham Hotspur, like that speaks volumes. You set that aside for just one moment. And it's not just the stuff that he does, you know, in an icon status. It's not just the stuff that he does around the club to show love and be a great captain and all other things. Fucking bangers upon bangers upon bangers upon Puskas Awards upon bangers. Sonny is going to lift a trophy with this club, and it's going to be a glorious day in our history. I can feel it.
I want to keep talking about the attack for a minute, because we did see a Tottenham debut, and that was for the young winger Wilson Odobert. And this was, I thought, a really, really positive debut. We are going to come on to talk about that other goal, because, gosh, when there's 4 of them, it takes you a little while to get through them all. We will talk about Romero's goal in a second. But before we move to that, you brought up Wilson Odobert. I thought this was a really, really strong debut. He did a lot of the dribbly winger things that I think are required. I thought he looked to be the better of the 2 wingers. I kind of teased it earlier. I wanted to dig out someone, and that someone is Brennan Johnson. I have not been that impressed by Brennan Johnson in these first 2 matches, and I'm not super duper down on Brennan Johnson. I just don't think he has shown quite a great amount of form in these first 2 matches. But seeing what Odobert was doing on the other side in this match, I wasn't blown away, but I was impressed for a debut for a young kid to come in and kind of just not look out of place. I thought he had more attempted more take-ons, contested more duels than any other Tottenham player. He was involved. He did not score. He did not assist, but he looked the part. And I just thought it was really, really strong from Wilson Odobert.
Yeah, agreed. I think that, you know, the chemistry is not quite there yet with the other forwards, but that will come. But he had all the fundamentals that we wanted to see, basically. And just as a minor thing, what I really appreciated was his defensive work rate.
Oh, thank you.
I think was important because Destiny does not look totally up to speed fitness-wise yet. So I think he needed that extra backup. So to see that in his first game was really nice.
I like that he provides us an option that we've been missing, right? He is that, if you can't just, when he's on the pitch, you can't just think he's going to run to the end line and cross, right? He's not Timo Werner. Like you have to be worried about getting back to the inside or he will beat you for pace and for skill. The issue with most dribbly wingers, and the reason why, as I'm watching him play, the reason why this gentleman found himself at Burnley and getting relegated as opposed to someplace else, being a French international, is because the end product is shit. Is really, really not good right now. And so what I'm hoping is, as well as he looked being in place and doing what dribbly wingers do, which is just fucking run at people and beat them, right? So it's like, it doesn't take a long time in order to do what you do well. I really want to see the fluidity of decision making pick up with him quickly, because I think that's being a dribbling winger in an Ange system means make a move, beat your man, get rid of the ball. And I think he held onto the ball too long and tried to do too much with it, which again is the fault of a dribbling winger. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
Kind of what they do. Caroline, I'm really glad you brought up the point about his defensive work, because that was one of the many notes that I wrote down on my yellow legal pad. I wrote down, and I quote, Odebear covered Udogi's ass nicely. And that was not that he did. Like, there were moments, especially early in that match, when Udogi looked off the pace. And of course Udogi was taken off, and Ange said after the match that he had some hamstring and calf issues, soreness. It's one to monitor, I think, for the week. But I think that he also commented too about the fact that Van de Ven and Romero are not quite up to fitness levels that they would want to be. They came into camp late, obviously having been on international duty. So it's somewhat understandable this early in the year, and you don't want to have anyone blow out. Udogi probably hasn't looked up to his best form as of yet, but the fact that Odebear was just willing to get stuck in and do the defensive work as well from his position, I thought was really cool. Ange spoke about Odebear after the match briefly as well. Let's take a listen to that real quick.
Yeah, exciting. He's, like I said, he's different from our other wingers. He goes at his opponent, and even if he wasn't successful, he went at him again. And I think that's exactly why we brought him to the club. I mean, he's 19 years old. His first game for his new club at home in front of 60,000. Yeah, really exciting.
I do want to move on to talk about the Christian Romero goal, but there was also, I'm going to reference football.london once again. There was a piece this morning that talked about set pieces and the fact that new coach Nick Montgomery has apparently been taking more charge of set pieces. And while it's still a collaborative effort under Ange Postecoglou, I think that there's something to be said for what Spurs are doing with their set pieces in these first two matches, not only from an offensive standpoint, but also from a defensive standpoint. We have not seen them concede, and granted, it's only been 2 games against lesser opposition, but they've looked pretty good defending set pieces, but also they scored off a set piece quite brilliantly in this match, with Christian Romero making his 100th appearance for the club and absolutely dunking on Jordan Pickford's face with a header off of a corner. This for me was this was like a slam dunk in basketball to me. Like that's what this goal was. This was an alley-oop type of goal. I was like, this was a get me up off the couch type of goal. And Romero has this capability. We know that. He almost scored earlier in the match, kind of got forward and had a really good crack within the first 5 or 10 minutes on Pickford that was stopped. Romero and Van de Ven both, for that matter, are so keen to get up and score goals that I think that is part of the Ange system and but these guys just have a knack. And Romero's header for me it was just a middle finger pretty much to the Everton defense. And I was really, really pumped up by it, Todd.
Yeah, dude, this is the stepping on the neck moment that I'm talking about. This was the one that was like, fuck you, you guys are not getting off the canvas. And like, I can't ask for anything more from my assistant captain, from my World Cup winner, from my Copa America winner, from one of the emotional leaders on the team, to just absolutely dunk on the head of their captain. Like, that makes me very, very happy.
Yeah, I also just liked that he got this goal on his 100th appearance for the club, because too often those milestones don't actually get marked by like a good result or a goal or assist or anything. So that was nice. I think it's also worth noting too, which we haven't yet, that Everton were kind of injury depleted.
For sure.
And they were missing, Branthwaite, one of their, most important players, who we know scored a devastating equalizer against us last season. So yeah, I think that was a bit of a factor on the set pieces for them. But good that we took advantage, and I still feel nauseous when we're defending one, because there was one, I think it was like right before halftime in this game, where everybody was certainly committed to clearing the ball, but it was still very chaotic in the box. So hopefully this new coach can iron up some of those defensive set piece issues.
There were really only two moments in this match that Everton like had chances, and it really was like the 5 to 10 minutes before halftime, after we had gone up 2-0. I think we were kind of ready to get into the locker room at that point and see if we could figure out a way to get a third, which obviously we did. But Everton were really in the game there, and you're right. There were brief moments of, I wouldn't say panic, but Everton were at least in the game for those 5 to 10 minutes before half. Todd, did you have another comment on
Yeah,
that?
I was just going to say I don't want it to sound like we glossed over the fact that they were absolutely decimated by injury, and it's just we punched them in the mouth and showed them no mercy, and that makes me really, really happy, because so many times we have to come on this podcast afterwards and it's like, oh, you got a decimated side, and Tottenham Hotspur, feel like half the team didn't get off the bus. And we didn't have that issue today, and that I don't know if it was what Ange said to the team during the week after Leicester, or if it was being home for the first match or whatever it was, but like we were locked in the entire time. I hope that this is the type of performance that we see going forward, because the next few weeks are going to be dicey.
Yeah, I think that's a really good shout. And also the fact that that kind of flurry of activity from Everton was happening right before the break. That tends to be a time in the past where we've been really vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
So I think just seeing, like you said, the mentality was just so improved from the first game. And I get that so many fans were frustrated about that result. But to me, I feel like the team learned from it. It was still a point away from home. Like, there are worse things than having that kind of example game to start the season and then kind of kickstart, hopefully, what's going to be a good run of form. Like we saw, last season, we had drawn the first game as well and then went unbeaten for a significant amount of time. So
Right.
I think the team kind of needed this. And Madison talked about that after the game, that, Ange will never be happy if they sit back when they're 2-0 up. Like, you have to keep pushing. And they did. And they got 4 goals. So our goal difference is already looking great.
I think that comparing and contrasting the Leicester match with this one is important. It's like you have to step on the necks of teams that you are better than. And they did it in this match, as to where they did not against Leicester. Extenuating circumstances, be damned. Like, this is what you're supposed to do against these types of teams. That said, we talked about 4 goals. Which of the 4 goals was your favorite goal from this match? Because I don't know that I can even answer this question. I'm going to ask it to both of you, and I don't know that I have an answer, because I loved each of them. I love how different they all are, and how meaningful they each were in the moment. You get the first one where we're really putting them under the foot and finally break through pretty early. You get the second one made off of a press that is just a little bit of mistake here, a little bit of pressure here. The Romero one, obviously coming off a set piece, is an important one. And then the fourth one is just sheer will and showing what we can do on the break, not only with attacking players, but with defending players. So is there one that stands out as a favorite, or can we just bundle all these up and have like 4 a game like this the rest of the season?
For me, it's the Basuma goal. It absolutely is the Basuma goal. And the only reason why is because that has to be an option in order for the rest of the Ange system to work. Like, that play was essentially what we see all the God blessed time, which is 72 touches in the box, and we just want a shot to come out of it, and we actually got one, and it was a rocket. And I think that after that moment, that opened up the rest of the game. I feel like there was more pressure on Pickford. I feel like everything else became possible once that shot went in. And the Ange hug after the goal was pretty epic.
We also got the prayer hands emoji to the fans. Like, there was him walking over. It was almost like he was asking for some forgiveness in that moment. I don't know if that's truly the case, but that's the way it read to me. I don't know. Like, there was something about that goal that was it was good for him. I think it was a good moment, and potentially can kick on to better moments. Hopefully can kick on to better moments for this player as we kind of continue to get him back on track. Caroline, is there a favorite goal for you of these 4?
It's going to have to be the 4th one, simply because I don't think we're going to see that goal very many times. So just the unique factor of it. I hope that Mickey has many more goal contributions this season because, we saw last season that he is capable, but I don't think he's going to make that run all the time. So that was pretty special.
I do think the cool thing about an Ange system is that you get an assist from a center back, you get a goal from a center back, you get 2 goals from your star winger / striker, and then you get a banger from a midfielder that is completely set up by all, like you said, Todd, like that kind of offensive momentum that they had earlier in the match, and to get him to step into one like he did, a goal from a defensive a goal from a defensive midfielder, essentially the guy playing the 6. It's coming from everywhere, and that's kind of when Tottenham is going well. That's, I think, what they want to be happening, which I think is really cool. Spurs travel to Newcastle next Sunday. We will have a preview out midweek from our guys Scott, and I think Dakota is going to try and jump on with them on that. If you have not seen our preview videos, they are an exclusive YouTube. We're not putting them in the podcast feed. We want you to go to the YouTube page, subscribe to our YouTube page, share those out, like them, say hi, leave a comment. Leave a review on those. We had our guys from the American Toffee podcast this past week talking about Everton. If you missed it, that was a really good chat. So we will have a preview out for the Newcastle match midweek. But this is a game next Sunday, and then we get the first international break of the season following it, which is just completely stupid and ridiculous. But that's a rant that I can probably get into a little bit more next week. For those who missed it, Newcastle had to come behind for a 1-1 draw this week away to Bournemouth. That was a match played earlier on Sunday, which Todd was a little upset about. So they've started their season.
Just the horse collar tackle by fucking Joe Linton. Oh, yes. and the VAR absolutely jobbing Bournemouth from a game winner. Not a big deal.
No big deal. No big deal at all.
I feel sympathetic towards Bournemouth this season since we took their best player. Like, I don't want them to go down. I would feel bad.
I really like Lewis Cook. Like they've got some talent in that team still.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see what happens. Newcastle have started with a win and a draw, so similar to us. That's a sneaky big clash next week up there at St. James Park. Never an easy place to go, and
not a good time.
I'm a little nervous that the fact that there's an international break on the other end of it. It's like you don't want to have to go up there where you've had so much kind of bad feelings over the last few years. I'm not even going to mention score lines, but it has not gone well up there recently. So I would love to see a result, but we'll see, and we'll obviously come back and talk about it after that one. We're not done here for this week, though. We've got a little bit more of things to talk about. Obviously, Europa League draw is coming up this Friday, as well as the end of the transfer window. That will close on Friday as well. Just a few kind of minor notes from the week. Ashley Phillips, you mentioned him earlier, Todd, does go on loan to Stoke City. He will play in the championship this season. Judson Sapel has departed on a permanent move to Cordoba. He is going to the Spanish league. And another little note, Jack Clark has made a move. Former Spurs player. He has gone to Ipswich Town from Sunderland for around £20 million. Spurs reportedly have a 25% sell-on clause.
Yes, they do.
Move. So a little bit of cash influx for Spurs for that move, and we will obviously get to see Jack Clark later in the season when Spurs turn around and play Ipswich Town. I don't know when those matches are offhand, but I'm sure they're not far off. So that'll be interesting to note as well. In terms of outgoings as well that have not happened, there's a lot of bluster around Manor Solomon's name right now. A loan deal to Leeds has been kind of rumored over the last few days, but there was also reports early this Sunday about him failing a medical that he went for on Saturday. Those reports were squashed by Paul O'Keefe. He says that there's not an issue, but we will see in the coming days if that move comes to fruition or if something else happens. It has not been made official as of this recording. And then there's obviously rumors about Giovanni Lo Celso, Sergio Reguilon trying to find permanent moves before the window closes on Friday. There was also a report earlier in the week from Paul O'Keefe about Spurs potentially looking to add a new backup goalkeeper before the window closes. Obviously, Fraser Forster has been the backup. There's Alfie Whiteman, there's Brandon Austin, but I think Spurs, if possible, would like to get a little bit stronger in that sense, but I don't know that that's a priority for this window or something that they could look to do in the future. My question to you guys is, what other moves in this window are there to get done other than these outgoings, which I think we know are going to happen eventually? Are there other incomings that we're looking for, or do we think that Spurs business is kind of mostly done as this window draws to a close?
So from my perspective, it's definitely focus is on the outgoings. Obviously, we're trying to we've spent some money, and I think we've spent it wisely in the long term. But in the short term, we need to tighten our business up, and that's something that I'm certain is not lost on Daniel Levy. I think that there is also with Johan Lange at the helm, everything is under wraps. It's very secret. That's one. Two, Daniel Levy has a reputation for the Ashley Phillips deal, the Manor Solomon deal, the Basuma deal, these deals that are manifested in a gray area where nobody else could make them, or nobody else is looking for them yet, or nobody else knew that they were possible, that he pulls out of thin air. And I think that there may be one or two of those left in this window. And it wouldn't surprise me if it is left-sided center back cover, potentially homegrown. A goalkeeper is possible, and then it wouldn't surprise me if another, like, I don't know. I think I heard that the like look for an additional 6 is kind of out the window at this point because of what we've seen from the crop of young players that we already have. But it wouldn't surprise me if we see something like that, some showing up some defensive 6 as well.
It's also just such a hard position to find anyone for, especially when you're talking about already having options and knowing you're trying to bring someone else in when there are already other options. You're not bringing someone in just to be the guy. It does make it kind of tough. Caroline, what about for you? Is there any business other than those outgoings, which I think we're fairly confident will happen, that you would want to see the club do before Friday?
No, I mean, I think Todd covered it. It's just, those are tough positions to recruit in. I feel like, especially this late in the window, it might be something we have to wait until January, and could even just be a loan. I don't know. The goalkeeper situation, I wasn't feeling as worried about it, but seeing Forster back on the bench this week was kind of like a wake-up call. So, yeah, I think on both sides of the club, men's and women's, the goalkeeping slate is worrying. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. I would not be shocked if Spurs did another move similar to the Youngmin Hyuk deal, where they sign a player, don't bring him in immediately, have him, even if it's a full year loan deal, but like a one for the future deal. We always kind of see those pop up. It's how we got the likes of Lucas Bergvall. It's how we got the likes of there's other players that they've done this with. Destiny Adogi was one where they did this as well, where he was away for
Sar was one. Vuskovic.
He's a defender, right? So
yeah, Vuskovic is a defender.
I would certainly not be surprised if Spurs ended up doing, something of that nature before the window closes. So we'll leave it up to them. But overall, I mean, we're going to have a chance to, once the window is officially closed, probably in the week of the international break, to be perfectly honest, we'll have a chance to kind of reflect back on this summer window. But overall, it's kind of nice that Spurs have done a lot of their business. Like we're not sitting here itching and scratching for more moves in the final week of the window, because they've kind of done a lot of what I think we would have expected them to do and found cover in places that they needed it. So we'll see what kind of trickles in these last few days. But for now, at least on the men's side, things are in good shape. Caroline, on the women's side, there's certainly work to be done, but they have done a little bit of work as well, and there's still more time before the season starts. There was more preseason action to discuss this week. A 2-1 preseason victory over Southampton for Spurs women. Martha Thomas scoring her second goal of the preseason. Evelina Suminen had a penalty, had to come from behind for this win, but obviously didn't get to see it because the team still refuses to stream these matches on Spurs Play, which you would think would be a thing, but they are behind closed doors preseason friendlies, so we're just getting kind of match reports from them. The other kind of big news out of Spurs women camp this week is that they're going to start adding a little bit more information on U21 teams, which I think is a good thing. They're going to start just more information, I guess, is where we are, right? I mean, that's a good thing. We're always itching for more and more and more, but at least we're seeing some progress in this. I guess that's the positive spin that I'm going to have on it, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's something we have been asking for as fans, so credit to the club for listening. I don't know how often y'all tune into the men's under 21 games, but I found it very interesting, to see these players who are kind of up and coming, like, watching Jamie Donnelly, Will Lancashire last year, and now getting to see them, progress to the first team. Like, you're already familiar with them, what their kind of strengths and weaknesses are. So I'm hoping we're going to get to that point with the women's academy soon. Obviously, not streaming games just yet, but even getting some match reports and learning more about the players themselves would be really welcome. So I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean they're not even streaming the first team preseason matches, which we at least get for the men's team. Like that would be my first step. But yes, eventually getting to a place where we're streaming all of these. I mean, this is why you build out an internal like streaming service, right? To be able to put all of this stuff out there for the fans. And maybe there are some reasons why that we're not privy to as to why they would want to have a couple of these preseason matches behind closed doors and so that no one can see them. I don't know what those reasons would be. Maybe they are tactical in nature. I don't know, but for me, I would want to see as much as I can see. And if I'm being honest, I'm not someone who watches a lot of the U21 or the U18 matches on the men's side. I watch the first team and I kind of keep tabs on those other academy teams. I don't watch them, but I know there are people like yourself, Caroline, who would if they were, broadcasting them on the women's side as well. So I don't know. That's just, I like I said, at least progress is being made. We're seeing steps being made. It's just what is all progress? It's typically slow. And that's kind of what we just got to kind of keep banging on doors to make that kind of stuff happen, I guess would be the way that I would put it. Did you have something else to add? Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
This is unrelated, but I do want to recommend to our listeners that they tune into an interview that Robert Villahan did on the Upfront podcast, which is, co-hosted by former Spurs keeper Chloe Morgan. Always a good listen. But I found it very illuminating because I think some of the conversations I've been having with other Spurs women supporters this summer are about how we're going to build on the momentum of last season. And I have some concerns regarding that, like specifically around, fan attendance. Like, we don't have any games announced yet for the main stadium.
Right.
So just little things like that. It's like, how are we harnessing that momentum from last season? But Robert in this interview did speak to sort of the rationale behind the transfer window this summer, like the squad building. He's very focused on kind of building from the core of players that he started to assemble over the last couple of windows. Obviously, his first two transfer windows with the club. But specifically, he said in January, he was able to bring in some players who were really the exact fit he was looking for. So for him, he hasn't felt like we've needed kind of a big splashy signing because he's pretty happy with the group that we're working with, and he just wants to help develop them further, which I understand. I do think there is kind of some discontent around the fan base around obviously losing Grace Clinton. I think a lot of folks were assuming we would kind of make a big splashy transfer to replace her, and that obviously hasn't happened yet. There's still a lot of time left in the women's window though. So
yeah,
if they're doing it under lock and key the way they are on the men's side, we could get, a surprise of an announcement, and that would be great. But it's just going to be interesting to see, if we do get kind of a surprising transfer, because I feel like we do need just a little bit of some sort of spark, going into the new season.
Yeah, there hasn't been anything big that's happened. There's been a few minor signings, but like I guess, like you said, there is time. We're just under a month until the first match against Crystal Palace, September 22nd, as we record this on August 25th. So there is time. And I guess the thing I would say about that is we don't know what we don't know. Like you say, maybe they're doing some of this under lock and key, and maybe there will be moves to be made, but we'll just have to kind of wait and see. You brought up Grace Clinton's name there. I wanted to give you a few minutes here to, I literally wrote in our rundown, let Caroline cook, because you were on socials this week going after some folks, which I really appreciated. Grace Clinton was named the PFA Young Player of the Year. for last season, obviously when which she spent on loan with Spurs Women. And there was just a lot of consternation from Manchester United fans about the fact that she's always wanted to be a Man United player and is coming back here to help us win things. And I just thought that was kind of funny, and you were getting after it, which I appreciated, and I kind of just want to step out of the way and let you cook on Grace Clinton's honor and her putting Tottenham Hotspur's name on a trophy next to hers.
Exactly. I mean, obviously, congrats to Grace first off, because she did have a great season and obviously deserves all the attention that she got. My frustration around this award stems from the fact that during her loan, it felt like we were hardly allowed to enjoy and appreciate the performances she was putting in, because there was just this constant chatter of, she's a United player, she's coming back, don't get used to it. And it's like, well, obviously we all know how a loan works, people. And I got so many comments this week asking me if I understand what a loan is. And it's like, yes, obviously I do. So I think I just kind of wanted for Spurs fans to be able to really, appreciate this awesome award that she won, and, just highlight the fact that she did it in a Spurs shirt. And as you said, it's the Tottenham name on the trophy alongside hers. So I just think it's very annoying that United fans would not even let us have this one thing. And it's, I do feel kind of sad for Grace, because and this is obviously just me being an armchair psychologist here, but every interview that she's made has made it sound like she thoroughly enjoyed her time at Spurs and probably would have stayed if her contract situation was different. So I think United fans are being perhaps a little bit gullible in taking her statements about, wanting to win a trophy at United at face value. Like, obviously she's going to say that she's under contract, she's there for another year. But we all know the reality, which is that club is a mess right now on the women's side, like underfunded, under-resourced, under-cared for. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. We've seen a lot of key players leave that team because of the conditions, most notably Mary Earps, England's goalkeeper. Like, I just think they're being a little naive about, what the real situation is. But it is what it is. And the truth is, we are down an important player in our squad this season because she has, ended her loan. So, yeah, a frustrating situation all around.
and there is, of course, hope that maybe she will return to Spurs one day, maybe after, because her contract is up after this season, right? She only has one more year on her deal with Man United. So maybe,
And the thing is that, with those key players leaving United this summer, there was a lot of frustration in their fan base about the club not doing a better job of getting those contracts extended. So a lot of them left on free transfers, which would be the situation with Grace if they don't extend her contract. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely not a settled matter, where she's going to be after this season.
Yeah, we shall see. Just like with this window, we shall see what comes with Spurs Women going forward. But yeah, still just under a month to go until that Crystal Palace match. So a little bit more time to wait for the games to count for them. But the preseason rolls along, and there's been plenty of training content and preseason content on the Spurs Women side. If you're itching for that, it's just we have to wait a little bit longer for it is all. So, but they're putting out a lot of different interviews and videos and things like that on the socials, which we do appreciate. I think that's going to do it for this episode of the Tottenham Depot. Be sure to check out our episodes on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Tottenham Depot. That is where you find our bonus preview episodes. We'll have one out midweek for looking ahead to the Newcastle match. Be sure to also leave us a rating and review on your podcast app of choice. Really does help spread the word about the show. And follow us on the socials at Tottenham Depot. You can follow Todd at TC_Kasho. You can follow Caroline at CG Stefko. You can follow me at A Stedka. And of course, follow us at Tottenham Depot. That's going to do it for us. We'll talk to you guys next week. As always, come on, you Spurs.